know you heard me on the radio. Flexing, she loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K. I know you heard me on the radio. Flexing, she loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K.
Rutgers fans, Night Watch watchers, welcome to another episode of Night Watch with your host Larry K. It's great to be with you on this beautiful fall Saturday because Rutgers, after a 4-game losing streak that was absolutely killing our souls with everything we had expected from this program going into this year, finally pulls out a victory, moves to 5-4. More importantly, as far as I'm concerned, beats a winning in-conference team right in the heart of the season. And I think that's a huge step. If you remember what I was saying going into this game, dealing with the losing streak and kind of going through what happened with this season, one of the biggest gripes I had and biggest concerns I had was, look, we have only beaten one conference team in Washington, and Washington hasn't turned out to be that good this year. But you go and you beat a Minnesota team that was coming off a 4-game winning streak, beating Maryland, beating USC, playing some good football. One of the things that I made note of, both on the RU review with Steve and that the guys on NJ.com have made note of, we've kind of everybody in the Rutgers content sphere has made note of, is like, look, Minnesota's a good team. Illinois is a good team. But those are the teams that we look like we might match up with a little better, as opposed to a team like UCLA, also who Minnesota went out and took care of. You look at a team like UCLA, and as much as they aren't a good team overall this year as far as record and whatnot, they are a team that matches up rough against us because they have such good perimeter speed and playmakers and athletes out there that are tough for us to handle, whereas Minnesota, not taking anything away from their athletes or their team, but the matchup and the style of play is a little bit more in our wheelhouse. And it did turn out in our favor at the end. Coming off a bye week, you were wondering, and Schiano had said it, and I have said, right, Schiano's not above criticism. And when his team is not playing good and there's some problems with the program mid-season, it's okay to criticize. No one was calling for anything more drastic than that. I think I still believed in him as a coach and believed in things, but it's okay to question the trajectory of a program, and there still are questions, right? You don't get too high, you don't get too low. There still are questions, given how this kind of season has gone so far. But you have a bye week. Your forte is defense, and your defense is struggling mightily. What can you do over that bye week? And Schiano said, we're going to have to sit down and figure out what we can do. It's not simply the injuries are going to overnight get better because of a bye week. These are lingering things, but what can we do? How do we make decisions? And you see a decision with a guy like Wesley Bailey, being out for the year. And whether that was a decision that was made because of a lingering injury or whether he just decided to have surgery or they got a better look at the injury, we don't know. But now he's got the opportunity to possibly have a medical red shirt. Maybe he wasn't 100%. He was dinged up at the beginning of the year. He's dinged up now. Maybe that was a decision that Schiano made. And the defense came out playing much better, head and shoulders better. Now, I want to caution you, again, some of that's the matchup and things, but Minnesota's a good team. They've played good, and that we matched up, and the defense came to play today. The sacks, we have 4 sacks today. The forced fumble, 2 forced fumbles, one of which Rutgers recovered, which I really think was the difference in the game. The turning point in this game in the second half when Rutgers forces a fumble on what would have been a nice catch and a decent gain. We force a fumble, we recover, and we go in and capitalize on that with the score. That really turned the game around because now the momentum was on the Scarlet Knights' side. We get the safety, and it really kind of puts the game away. Close to it. The field goal really puts it away. But the defense had to make several stands in between there. The offense came out firing really on all cylinders, I thought, early in the game. I was impressed with the offense early on. Ethan Kaliakmanis looked sharp. The receivers were making plays. The running backs, let's give it up for Antoine Raymond. Let's give it up for Deshaun Benjamin. But Deshaun Benjamin, this is the type of intricacy you're looking for with team management under this coaching staff, program management. Benjamin was banged up at the beginning of the year. He now can play all 4 remaining games and still maintain a redshirt status. So holding him out up until this point probably going to pay off and be smart. Kyle Monungai obviously out today. Our star, standard bearer in the backfield is out today. But these young guys make a decent showing. And I was confident in these young men because we've seen them play before and they've shown a lot of promise. So I wasn't surprised. Antoine Raymond on 22 carries gets 73 yards, averaging 3.3 a carry. Standard, respectable performance by him. Deshaun Benjamin, 11 carries, 66 yards. He was averaging 6 yards a carry. He looked very, very good. If you remember Benjamin last year, he looked promising last year. And he was getting reps and snaps last year and looking good. And this year, he looks good once again. We kind of forgot about him, right? Because you had Raymond, you had Sam Brown. Really unfortunate what happened to Sam. Kyle, obviously, having another great year up until getting hurt. Hopefully, he's back soon. But you almost forget about Benjamin. Benjamin comes back and has looks really good. So we have some real talent there in the backfield. But a lot of the story today, I thought, was about these wide receivers. These 2 young men, these big-bodied, tall young men who came in with a lot of fanfare, are really starting to show what they are going to be for this program. And I think one of the main things we have to look at when you're looking at the remainder of this season, and we lost a couple more guys today, which I'll talk about. The bodies have stacked up a little bit, for lack of a better term, on this team this year. A lot of injuries. One thing you got to do is you obviously got to figure out who you're bringing in, in the offseason, how you're rebuilding. You got a couple guys who you didn't think you would have now that hopefully will be back because of injury, which is unfortunate. But if you can get those guys to return for another season, you're a little more bolstered than you thought you might be next year. But retaining and continuing to develop the young guys in this program, last year's recruiting class was very good. And you have another promising one potentially coming in here, assuming they all get to campus. And so you've got to capitalize on these young guys. And I thought the story of today was these young wide receivers. They are very talented in KJ Duff and Ian Strong. Ian Strong, 4 receptions for 89 yards and a touchdown. Blown coverage, it looked like. They didn't switch off, but, Ethan keeps his eyes where they should be, hits Strong. Strong gets in. KJ Duff, 3 receptions for 65 yards. The long for Strong was 65, Duff was 37, but both these guys are making some acrobatic catches. Both these guys are expanding the catch radius, and they had some really nice clutch catches when we needed it most, and I thought that was a big part of this game. Dymere Miller, 5 receptions, 2 touchdowns. He looked absolutely lights out in the first half. He's got the ability to run really nice routes. He's got the ability to be really a force, and I like how the chemistry is developing with he and Ethan as we get down the stretch in the season here. But the second half, Miller struggled. I really think it definitely won. Possibly 2 of those drop passes were on Ethan. Miller's not the kind of guy with the radius like Duff and Long, and some of those passes were a little high. They were rocketed in there, and it's tough for him. He's also taken some shots this year and held on to the ball. So it was tough for him on 2 of them. But the last drop that could have gotten a first down, and if the game had gone a different way and the defense hadn't come through, I think we would be maybe singing a much different tune. That was a bad drop, and it was a problem. But then you had Dremel in there. He gets a reception too for 17 yards. Logan Blake, a younger tight end, trying to make a step up with all the injuries we have at the tight end position. So I thought the story really was there. Ethan Kaliakmanis, these wideouts were doing a great job, and these young backs stepping up. I mean, obviously the main story is the defense. The defense doing its job. The defense coming in with a new sense of purpose. I thought was huge. Ethan Kaliakmanis was 17 of 33, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Those numbers looked even better at the end of the first half. He looked very good in the first half. Second half, third quarter, I think he struggled a bit. The whole offense struggled a little bit, and you started to kind of go, I know I did. I was talking to Rajiv from the Bucky Report, the Wisconsin guy who was on this channel, great guy. We're texting, and he's like, obviously being a Wisconsin fan, he's pulling for Rutgers, and He's like, I really want you guys to pull this out. And I wasn't confident because at one point it seemed like, this is the story of this season, isn't it? This is the story of this season where we can't play complementary football, where if the defense is doing something right, the offense can't get it going, like we saw in Nebraska, or if the offense is doing things right, the defense can't get it going, which we saw like the last 3 games here. And it looked like that in the third quarter. The defense is stepping up in a big way, and all of a sudden the offense can't get anything, can't get a sustained drive together. But the defense really is what turned it around, I thought, with the fumble recovery that kind of broke us out of that stalemate. It wasn't like, the defense was giving anything up. As our offense was struggling, the defense was still holding serve. They were holding serve and nothing more, but finally on that forced fumble, they kind of shifted momentum. It was a huge play. You need those type of plays, and you especially need those type of plays in a Schiano program that has a ton of injuries, may have some talent issues. You need those types of plays to drive it home, and that was a huge play. That changed everything. Let's talk about Jabome, right? Because this kid came in with a lot of fanfare. He's got a great story. They were talking about it on the broadcast. And he has gone through a rough patch. These linebackers have gone through a rough patch. Whatever was done, and I think something was done over this bye week. I don't know if it was just drills. I don't know if it was going back to fundamentals. I don't know if it was technique. I don't know if it was personnel. We're going to have to do a deeper dive on that. But clearly the tackling, you just look at something as simple as the tackling this game as compared to the losing streak. And guys were meeting Minnesota players at the point of impact, and instead of missing tackles time and time again, allowing for the Gophers to get out there and get more yards, we were making tackles at the point of contact. So when Harris Simiak made a call and the call was right, the guys were actually able to execute and reap the benefits of that correct call and bring guys down when they need to. Early in the game, it was a little tough early on. You saw Brosmer escape out of the pocket on a key third down, go for a big gain. I'm like, oh no, here we go again, because they had him. They had him in the backfield. They had him for a sack, and he escapes. And I'm like, please, let's not do this again. But the game really never really turned out like that after that point. Brosmer, 27 of 45, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 262 yards, a respectable game. But the difference was, in my opinion, the defense executed. When you had to make a play downfield, when he threw the ball for a 5-yard gain, there was a lot less yards after the catch because guys were wrapping up. They were making tackles. When you had him in the backfield for a sack, you got him down for the sack. And again, I don't know if that's technique. I don't know if that's personnel. I don't know what that is. But Jabome flying all over the field, wrapping up, really in the right positions as opposed to the last several weeks, was in the right positions at the right time, doing a great job. 11 solo tackles, 13 total, and a sack, 3 tackles for loss. That's what you wanted to see out of that young man. And you saw it. Tyrene Powell looked back to form. Maybe he just needed 2 weeks to kind of rejuvenate himself. But total of 8 tackles, 4 solo tackles. He was wrapping up really well, stopping guys in the hole for short gains or a loss of gains. Flip Dixon almost had an interception there. He looked better. So, you had your guys, and how about let's give it up for Al-Shadi Salam here, a guy who, has stuck with the program despite moving out of the running back position, got us the winning touchdown against Boston College a couple years ago. Essex County, Jersey kid, moves to cornerback like a good soldier, has struggled a little bit. The cornerback position has suffered some depth tests, but has a great defended pass there late in the game and did his job as well. That was just nice to see. So the defense overall just it looked good in those ways. And then Jordan Walker with the safety coming off the edge. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to personnel. A Bailey is out for the season, and maybe that's the type of decision you make because he's hampered and he's not the same guy. Maybe you put him away, let him save himself for another year of college ball should he choose to do that. But you get a guy in there like Walker who's got a lot of potential, and you put him in there. He's a junior, and it's taken some time for him to maybe get up to speed, but you put him in there and he comes through in a huge way at a huge point in the game and makes a difference. So maybe some of those decisions were key. Get guys who are fresher, get guys who want to give their all and make an impact, and get them to do it. But Jaquan Loyal with the fumble recovery, this is a guy who, he's gotten beat once or twice, but he's been a constant. He hits hard, he comes up with interceptions when he needs to. He had another good tackle today. He gets the fumble recovery, and so and he's always around the ball that way. So I just love the defensive effort today. I really did. I think it was a key to the game, and it was great to see. So now you got to deal with some injuries. So Wright goes down on a non-contact injury, celebrating with his team. That's tough. You never want to see that. And now we're going to have to deal with that. It's just, hopefully he's okay, but when you go down non-contact, it's never really good. And then, Tyler Needham, who got hurt last year, he goes down late in the game. You hate to see guys go down late in the game. He goes down. It looks like a leg injury. He kind of pulls his leg out of a pile. He's walking off the field gingerly. I couldn't really tell if that was a knee or something. You're hoping it's just a pulled hyperextension of some sort, and he can get back, maybe the groin, maybe he can get back for later in the season, because you just hate to see, a key player on an already banged up offensive line, on an already banged up team, go down with an injury. It's just difficult. You hate to see it. So I really hope he's back. But it's tough with those couple injuries. The team just can't catch a break with injuries. You hope some of these guys get back. It's just tough to see, but you're happy to get out of there with a win, obviously. Just one of those seasons, man. It just seems to be one of those seasons where there's so many injuries, and it's difficult to kind of, to deal with. Third down efficiency, Rutgers is 4 of 14, so kind of rough on third downs, but still had 19 first downs, which was more than Minnesota's 18 first downs. I thought that was because Rutgers did a pretty good job of, especially at key points in the game, whether it was converting earlier, ahead of schedule on pass plays that went well. And I'm saying, these wide receivers got nice separation, and they expanded the catch radius and did well. And Nathan Kaliakmanis, the quarters that he was particularly on, the touchdown throw to Dymere Miller, I thought was particularly well executed. Pulling the ball down with the play fake, throwing it right over. I mean, if you watch that replay, it was laser point pass to Dymere Miller, right under the hand of a defensive lineman trying to stop it, right in the chest of Dymere Miller. When he was on today, he was on. And when he wasn't on, at times there were drops and there were miscues, but the other, the talented wide receivers expanded the catch radiuses and brought it home and made things happen. So we wound up with still a lot of first downs despite subpar third down efficiency. Fourth down efficiency, we were 1 of 2. The touchdown being the conversion there. We had the touchdown on a run from Kaliakmanis, who obviously wanted this. And this was the battle of the brothers, man. Flip Dixon, Heatherman going to be the DC, Harasimiak, and Chiraka coming from Minnesota, obviously Fleck and Chiano and their relationship, Kaliakmanis, and a lot of back and forth with the programs. Kaliakmanis wanted that touchdown. Fleck called the timeout, so they negated the touchdown. I thought it was the right decision to just keep your nose in and go for it there. Great executed play, and it really set the tone for the game. One thing I can't stand is still the majority of punts we don't return, and they're not just winding up, dropping and bouncing back towards us, or stopping or going out of bounds. These punts are winding up rolling all the way down towards the end zone, and we're losing anywhere from 10 to 20 yards every punt because we're not even fielding the punt. I thought it was telling at the end of the game when Dremel was allowed to catch it and run a little bit, and we kind of set the tone. He got like a solid 10 yards, and don't mind the cat behind me, a solid 10 yards. And all of a sudden then, Benjamin's coming out and running, and we're getting a bunch of yards, a clip, and we get 2 first downs really quickly, which put us in range for a field goal and make Minnesota drain the clock. You're just getting momentum, and you're creating things, and you're giving yourself a chance to have a play and a leg up and a difference maker when you allow your players on special teams to field punts, to field the ball, and to do something with it. I'd like to see more of that. I understand that it's a risk-reward analysis, but when you're a team like us and you're going through the adversity we're going through and you need to be an equalizer sometimes, you got to go for those things. So it was frustrating not to see that for a majority of the game, especially in the third quarter where it looked like things could be turning against us. But I was happy towards the end that we did it, and I think it set the tone for that whole drive. And so I'd like to see more of that. I really, really would. We rushed the ball 109 yards to Minnesota's 35 yards, and I think that was a huge difference in the game. Now, that goes without saying, right? You'd say, duh. I mean, obviously, that's a huge difference in the game, but I think you got to look at it in two ways. Number one, without our lead running back, the two young guys filled in very nicely, and you can't put everything on the running backs. Obviously, the offensive line had a nice game in the running game. So we wind up with 109 yards. And conversely, on the other side, our defense, as I was saying before, instead of missing tackles, we were meeting guys at the point of impact and executing. So Harasimiak's drawing up the right play so that we're there to make the play. But the difference in this game compared to the last several games was this time our guys wrapped up and actually executed well and wound up, stopping them for short or no or gain or a loss, and they wound up with only 35 rushing yards. And that's not the way the Gophers want to play ball, and that's obviously going to affect the Gophers, and that was a huge difference in the game. 240 passing yards for Rutgers, 262 passing yards for Minnesota. That was kind of a tit-for-tat thing. I thought they looked pretty decent in the passing game. It just wasn't quite enough at the end of the day. It was a close game, kind of a back and forth. It just wasn't quite enough at the end of the day with the way Rutgers was stopping the run. And when you can stop the run, I mean, everybody knows this. This is not rocket science. This is football 101. When you can stop the run and you can run the ball, you're going to have a much better day. I actually think that this game would have been even more in Rutgers' control, and we might not have had that rough, nail-biting third quarter had Athan not made that mistake, forced the ball a little bit with that interception at the end of the second half. We would have been up by, had 21 points, and it would have been a whole different game. But I'll take the win. It doesn't really matter. So that's kind of where you are. I think the step up in defensive play, the efficiency by the quarterback, and handing it to the young running backs who stepped in Kyle Monungai's absence was big. Going forward, it's the story of this season in some ways is going to be how do we rebound from these injuries? Who do we get back next week? That was after a bye at home. And, now we have to go on the road, not after a bye, against a Maryland team, 6 p.m. kickoff next Saturday. Maryland team that has not been good this year by and large, right? But a Maryland team that has had Rutgers' number for most of the last several years and most of Shiano 2.0. And a Maryland team that, again, while not one of the better teams we're going to face in this 4-game stretch, has playmakers on the perimeter, and that has been a consistent problem for Rutgers. So what's the extent of Needham's injury? What's the extent of these injuries? Don't look great because of the fact that they are leg injuries. I hate to see leg injuries. So, but have you figured something out on defense now? And is it dependent on the matchup, or is it because you are playing better, you are executing better? That is going to be a big piece of this thing. If Rutgers has tapped into a new energy on defense and has tapped into executing, better execution, and now they've turned the page on that rough mid part of the season, and they're able to bring guys down regardless of how talented they may be as far as speed and whatnot, then we may be able to do well in this 3-game stretch. We're still 1 game and 1 win away from a bowl game. I think, I'm not going to get too high or too low. This was 1 out of 2 down that we need to get to a bowl game. I think with all the injuries we have, with the young players who came in with a lot of fanfare, who want to feel like we're on an upward trajectory, with the recruits coming in, you really got to get to a bowl game and keep the bowl streak alive. One of the best things about Shiano 1.0 was coming from the history that Rutgers has had and trying to go big time and all the stops and starts and difficult years. Just going to bowl games consistently year in and year out brought the program to a baseline level that you could build upon, or at least at bare minimum be proud of year in and year out, where you could sustain some level of respectability. So getting to another bowl game this year, I think, would be huge, even if we didn't reach the heights or don't reach the heights that we thought possible. You had all these injuries, you had some other concerns, and you didn't maybe get to those heights, but get to a bowl game. Now there's 3 games left, and every one of those games is potentially winnable. And it's potentially winnable because this Minnesota team had a good record and had beaten some good teams in conference coming into the game. So now that you've beaten them, and you've beaten them relatively soundly, it bodes well for the rest of the season, and it shows, yes, you can be in any of those 3 games or all of those 3 games. You have the chance to win them. You've struggled, and I'm not discounting that. So there's still a lot of concerns, especially against the teams with playmakers on the outside and whatnot. But you've shown you can beat good teams in conference now. I think that's another step up this season. A 6-3 team coming in conference, and you beat them. Show us what you got. Maryland's not a great team. They're not a bad team, but they're not a great team. They don't match up well with you. You don't match up well with them. But what can you do to be an equalizer and win that game? Then you come home against Illinois, another, again, team with a respectable season, but maybe we match up a little better with them. And that's a game you'd like to try to pull. Then you finish with Michigan State on the road. Again, a beatable team, but a team that, these are all these kind of back and forth toss-up type games. And those 3 games move from, in my opinion, Rutgers looking like a serious underdog to Rutgers kind of being back in toss-up territory, because you play a Minnesota team without your star running back, with several injuries that have stacked up, as a 6-point underdog, and you beat them by 7. So everything's on the table. You don't want to get too high or low. We have some more injuries. We already have injuries. We still have some concerns on this team as far as consistency. But you played complimentary football after a bye week. You got a much-needed win. You're back in the winning column. You're over 500. You've stopped the bleeding on the losing streak. You've beaten a winning in-conference team that was doing well, that wasn't facing some crazy adversity that makes it an excuse. And it bodes well, and it kind of injects some much-needed life and optimism into the fan base and into the program. And I think it shows that this coaching staff, despite some of the valid criticisms, despite some of the challenges this season, this coaching staff can still hit the drawing board, figure something out, and find a way to instill resiliency and chop the moment, chop the week, chop the game in this team. And it's just nice to see. Shout outs to Kurt from the Minnesota podcast on the College Huddle. He reached out to me to try to get me on their show. I would love to have them. I actually missed the game today, which I'm really upset about. I wish I could have been there. It was a perfect tailgate weather, perfect football day, and they get the win. I haven't seen that since the Washington game. I'm at every game usually, but my medical situation just hasn't improved enough that I could get up all those stadium stairs, and I'm a little sick, so I wasn't unfortunately able to make it. Hopefully, I will be either at the basketball game Monday. If not Monday, definitely Friday. And I'm going to be talking to you guys about the basketball game Monday. We'll be previewing the Maryland game. So keep it locked here to Night Watch with Larry K, guys. I'm asking you, if you haven't done so yet, if you're just stumbling upon this page, if you've watched me, week in and week out, if you've seen me here and there, please go ahead and click that subscribe button on YouTube. It's right, just click. It's right here. Just click it. I'll wait for you a second to click it. I'm letting you find it. It's right there. Just click that subscribe button for me. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers here and continue to grow the channel. If you're listening on any of the podcast apps, continue to listen there. This podcast is always available as an audio-only show that you can listen to while you're driving, while you're going to work. Stop over at the YouTube page, Night Watch Larry K, and click subscribe to help me out. If you're watching on YouTube and you feel like turning me on in the car or at work or wherever, search on any podcast platform, Apple, iHeartRadio, Audible, any of those places you can find Night Watch with Larry K to listen. So go and listen, subscribe on your podcast apps. I'll talk to you guys all very soon. Enjoy the rest of your winning Saturday. It's nice. You got Penn State game coming up later today. You got a lot of other Big Ten action. So go and enjoy it. Enjoy your Saturday. Go check out all the other content creators on the College Huddle and everywhere else. And we will be with you soon. Larry K out.